we have 4 simple rules. Number 1, we don't discuss politics, ever. Number 2, this is not a religious channel, and while you might hear people say, God bless you, or I'm going to pray for you, or I wouldn't have gotten through this without my faith, that's fine. What's not fine is to say, my God is better than your God, or here's why you're not getting into heaven. It's not going to fly. Number 3, we believe wholeheartedly if you can't control your tongue, then you can't control your life. So while on board, there's not going to be any cursing in the live chat, period. And number 4, there is no room for mean people on the lifeboat. Because we discuss very sensitive things from people's past in our group setting, we got to protect those people. The only way they feel confident and comfortable discussing those things is in an environment that is free of trolls and mean people. So if you're a mean person or you're a troll, we're going to block you for life. And if your account happens to be less than 24 hours old, we're probably a little suspicious right from the word go. Why? Well, because there are people in this world who enjoy being cruel solely for the sake of being cruel. It's not going to fly here. But if you're here because you're trying to get sober and live your best life, then you might find that the lifeboat is just that, a lifeboat. Hey everybody, I am Captain Tommy Scoville, and you are on the lifeboat. Welcome everybody. Glad that you're here. So, you saw the thumbnail, and this is an interesting subject, and it's going to be one that's going to it's going to bring out the opinions in all of us. This is one of those subjects that no matter how you shake it, it has opinions that are polarizing. And to be really honest, so do some of the last couple of shows that I did. I want to talk a split second on Kratom, because the number of people that have reached out to me, listen up. If Kratom is working for you, fantastic. You know, the purpose of the show that I did was not to bag on individuals who are using this. I don't care if you're using it. Truthfully, I don't. If you're abusing it and you have a habit that is going to be difficult to get off, then I think that that's an issue. There are people who have reached out to me that said that this stuff, parts the Red Sea, walks on water, and all of the rest. And if that's the case for you, well, then fantastic. I couldn't be more happy. However, my issue with this lies in a couple of areas. Number 1, it is unregulated. There is absolutely no regulation to this substance, and I find that frightening. Plain and simple. I find that frightening. The second is that what we get because of the fact that it is unregulated, there is no rhyme or reason to the strength of this stuff. And that is also an issue. And then aside from that, I don't like the fact that they make medical claims, crap loads of them, about what it cures, what it treats, all of that. For a dietary supplement to claim that it cures falling arches and, everything else that the claims that they make is an issue for me. There you go. If you'd like to hate me for that, I'm easy to find. Send me an email. All right. So the subject today was brought up. The reason that I decided that I was going to talk about this today is because currently I live in the state of Nevada. I'm working on making that, a part of my past. I'm trying to currently I am working on relocating, but for the time being, I live in Nevada, and Nevada is rolling out a couple of proposals that have to do with the decriminalization of certain substances, one of which is psilocybin cubensis. This is the ingredient found in magic mushrooms. There is a ton of research to back up the fact that psilocybin has amazing benefits. I'm all about anything that is helping individuals who are struggling with drug addiction beat drug addiction. And there seems to be a lot of evidence to suggest that individuals who struggle with a use disorder of any kind, whether it's amphetamines, whether it's opiates, whatever it happens to be, including alcohol, there's a lot of science to suggest that the use of psilocybin in, especially in a clinical kind of a setting, helps to alleviate a lot of this for a lot of people. If that's the case, I love it. I really do. I also like that it's being used to treat people coming back from war, people with post-traumatic stress disorder. There are a lot of applications for this substance that seem promising. On the flip side of that, they also are talking about another substance for not only experimentation, but for decriminalization, and that is MDMA, methyl-dioxymethamphetamine, or ecstasy, as most of us know it, right? Ecstasy, biscuits, disco biscuits. You know, there was a ton of different nicknames for that drug, but it's ecstasy. My issue with the legalization of ecstasy is that I've lived through that show once already. I at one time lived in a city where you could buy ecstasy at the General Nutrition Center in 1,000 bottle pills. 1,000 pill bottles. You could also buy it at your local watering hole. You could go in and order a Long Island iced tea and a hit of ecstasy. And I watched how that worked out. And I'll be honest with you, I don't think it was a great show. It really was not. There were a ton of issues that arose because of the legalization of MDMA. So I don't know. I'm not a proponent of thinking that that's a good idea. But it got me looking into a lot of other things because this is nationwide. This is not just here. There are cities across the United States that have already decriminalized the possession of drugs, all of them, in personal use quantities. And this is one of those things that, first of all, it's going to get a lot of people to weigh in. There's a lot of people who think that we're just throwing our hands up and saying, okay, we tap out. If you can't beat them, get high with them. I understand the sentiment. And I think it would be a better world if drugs were something that were, that we didn't need to fight this battle that way. However, that isn't the world we live in. And currently, some of the statistics really make you think that decriminalization is worth taking a look at. Go ahead and insert your favorite Homer Simpson joke. Go ahead. But I'm putting on the shades. Currently in the U.S., if you take 100% of drugs arrests in this country, 18% of those arrests are for the manufacturing and distribution of drugs, with 82% for possession or use. That doesn't seem to me like it is a great ratio. We're arresting drug users. We're not arresting drug dealers or drug manufacturers. And that's an issue because we call this a war on drugs. And truth be told, it's a war on drug users. And that hasn't worked out very well. For a very long time, that has not worked out very well. We are leading the world in prosecutions for drugs. Yet we are leading the world as well in drug use and lifetime drug use, not experimentation, not although we basically lead the world in every category. But the one that jumps off the page is lifetime drug use. These are people who use drugs recreationally until the day they die. And if we seem to be leading the world in that, yet we prosecute more people than any other place, then it doesn't seem like that's working very well, does it? You would think with all of the prosecutions and all of the people who get put in prison for this, that maybe that would be a deterrent. But as it turns out, that's not the case. Not by a long stretch. In fact, it's the exact opposite. It seems that the more we prosecute, the more people use. The more we incarcerate, the more people get addicted. So we find ourselves in a situation where we need to take a damn good look at exactly what we're doing and trying to find a method that works better than the current plan that we're on. Because the current plan, for lack of a less colorful way to put it, sucks. This isn't working. So I started to look at some of the other models around the world of countries that have decided to go a completely different route. And we've talked about these in the past, but this time the deep dive went a little bit deeper. So one of the ones that really jumps off the page is the Portuguese model. In 2001, Portugal said, that's it. Drugs are going to be decriminalized across the board. They didn't bother to say what a personal amount was. It's not even written down. There's no law somewhere that says 28 grams of this is okay, 32 grams of that is okay, 11 grams of this is okay. They just said if it's personal use, we're not going to prosecute. Now, every time this gets brought up anywhere around the world, there's a couple of concerns that jump off the page instantly. The first is we're going to end up a tourist destination for people that want to get high. Tourism, for the sake of drug use, is something that everybody brings up when you talk about the decriminalization or the legalization of drugs. And I think this is largely due to the fact that there are people every year that fly to Amsterdam for no other reason than to get stoned. And that's been going on for a long time. Obviously, that holds a little less of an appeal these days because there is so much of America that allows for the use of recreational marijuana that you're not seeing as many people that feel like, ooh, look, we get to go somewhere and get stoned without having to worry about getting arrested. But in Portugal, they saw none of that. There was absolutely no uptake at all in individuals who are coming to that country for the purpose of getting stoned or getting high or using needles or whatever, because across the board, they've decriminalized it all. Whether you want to do coke, heroin, meth, whatever, as long as you're not carrying around pounds of the stuff, then you're not going to be arrested and prosecuted. Now, the other thing that people get very concerned about is, what is this going to do to our kids? If we decriminalize drugs, then the use of drugs among young kids is going to go through the roof. Obviously, if we decriminalize, kids are going to go, wow, I'm not in any danger of doing this. I'm going to experiment more. That's logical, right? But it isn't. I mean, it may be logical, but it's not what's happening. In Portugal, they saw the use of adolescents using drugs go down. Why that is, I'm not sure. And I guess you could debate it. I have always said that one of the reasons that kids click up and do drugs in this country is because it's instantly a club that you can belong to that makes you feel edgy and makes you feel like you're a rebel. There is a certain fraternity aspect to drug use in this country. It's they have their own language, right? When we were kids, we got baked. Now they get faded, and all of these different terms that they use, and they call drugs by different names. And, it's this instantly you're part of a group of people that are going to accept you. And we've talked about this before. You don't have to be an athlete. You don't have to be a band member. You don't have to be into theater. Instantly, all you got to do is get stoned, and there's a whole group of people who are ready to take you in. Perhaps making that not edgy and not rebellious is one of the reasons. But for whatever reason, they have seen a marked decrease in drug use among adolescents. Amazingly, they've also seen drug addiction go down. Doesn't make a lot of sense, does it? But that's what's happening. And what they've done is a harm reduction model. We talked about harm reduction. So if you're using intravenous drugs in that country, they will give you needles to use. No issues whatsoever. They will give you the ability to test with the product that you're going to be using to make sure that it doesn't have any kind of adulterants in it or things that you have to worry about, so that people who are wanting to do heroin are actually doing heroin, as opposed to this country where people hoping to do heroin are doing fent. Across the board, they have seen nothing but benefit from decriminalization. Now, you can start to wonder, maybe, this is a very different society. The Portuguese society and the US society are obviously very, very different in a lot of ways. And perhaps that's it. Perhaps it is a cultural thing. So I started to look to see if there were any other countries that were adopting a similar type of decriminalization model. The Czech Republic. The Czech Republic originally, when they broke away from Russia, had a very unusual policy, which I found somewhat humorous. But the policy literally read, if you were caught with a quantity greater than small, literally, it's how it's written up, a quantity greater than small, then you could be arrested. What small was in the was at the discretion of the police officer or the constable or whatever who caught you with the substance. So they would look at it and go, that looks like personal use. That person is not going to be prosecuted. And this has remarkably had the same effect as it did with the Portuguese model. In 2009, they actually said, all right, here's the deal. We're going to put amounts on all of these substances. So if what you're carrying is an opiate that comes from poppies, they're going to cap that at an ounce. If you're carrying the Bolivian marching powder, the stuff you stick up your nose, that's got a different threshold. And all of these things have different amounts. They have seen a marked decrease in adolescent drug use. Again, kids are not using more dope because of decriminalization. They're using less. It's kind of remarkable, isn't it? Now, if you've got a theory better than the one that I've got, I'm willing to listen to it, because I don't understand on the surface what other reason there could be for kids to all of a sudden not be enthralled with drugs the way they are in this country. Perhaps it's just that it's no longer forbidden fruit. Now that it's just completely accepted, the normal amount of people who are going to experiment, but you don't get the across the board 70% of the kids are going to end up trying this stuff and partying. This keeps repeating in every one of these cultures. Same thing happened in Argentina. And again, in every case, drug use has actually decreased since decriminalization. Odd, right? So here we are in a country that uses more dope than any other country in the world by a damn stretch. No other country is even close with the amount of drugs that are being used. And many cultures, many countries now say, you can't blame us for sending you all this spent. The problem is that you have the demand. We're just meeting the supply. That really has been the beast from the East. They came out and said, hey, it's not our fault that everybody in your country wants to get high. That's your fault. Maybe there's something to that. But however you come down on this, whichever side of this equation you come down on, these are statistics that don't lie. Decriminalization, everywhere they try it, is having a positive effect. It also does some other things. Let's say, hypothetically, we stopped prosecuting people for possession. Well, then, by our statistics, 82% of the arrests and the incarcerations simply will stop happening. 82%. That frees up a stink load of money. If you're not paying to prosecute, incarcerate, house, rehabilitate all of these people who are getting arrested, all of a sudden there's a surplus of money that you can do other things with. And if you follow the model of other countries, what they do with that is they put it into harm reduction. So if you catch somebody 4 times who is carrying fent, or you're catching them with heroin, or you're catching them with cocaine, or whatever the case may be, they have money to try to steer these people into treatment. A surplus of money to try to treat people who are struggling with drug addiction. They have begun to treat it as an illness instead of a crime. I don't know. I mean, I understand all of the law and order people who are going to say, man, you just can't let people get stoned. You just can't let people start, doing whatever they want with drugs. I got news for you. They're doing that. I don't think that there are a lot of people in the United States of America today who say, I'm not going to get high. And you know why I'm not going to get high? Because it's against the law. I mean, there are close to 4,000 people on the lifeboat, and none of us were dissuaded by laws against the substances we were abusing. Didn't stop any of us. I don't know why we would assume that it's going to stop anyone else. And this is a hard one, people. It really is. I don't love the idea of decriminalizing every substance on the planet. I think it's dangerous. In my head, I have a hard time believing that that's not a dangerous thing. But the statistics don't back up what I think. And I think that we have been programmed in this country to believe that if you were to decriminalize drugs, well, then hell, every single person on the planet is going to get high. People that never thought of getting high are going to run out and buy a little heroin because they're not going to get in any trouble for doing it. The amount of money that we could put into education, the amount of money that we could put into rehabilitation, the number of people whose lives would not be destroyed, not by the drug, but by what happens when you get caught with the drug. If drugs had been decriminalized, I might be running for office. For real. Maybe I'd be a lawyer. I don't know. But there are a ton of avenues that I will never be able to have anything to do with because of my past. There are a ton of things that I will be banned from for life because of my drug use. There are places I can't live. If I wanted to go and get a condo in New York City, there's no chance in hell any condo is going to allow me to purchase it anywhere. And if I made $100 million next year, they're still not going to let me purchase their condo. Because we hang a scarlet letter on people that dramatically changes the rest of their time on the planet. There are a ton of jobs they can't have. Obviously, they can't own a firearm, right? That's one of those things. There are certain states where you're not allowed to live within X number of miles or X number of yards from an elementary school. Because obviously, if you ever got high, your desire is going to be to go into that school and get kids stoned. Doesn't make sense, does it? But these laws are on the books in a lot of places so that once somebody is in the system, they're done. They really are. It's going to change your life. People, I am on the 27th of June. I will have been sober for 8 years. 8 years. But I can't leave to go on vacation without filing 15 pieces of paper and then getting them approved by a probation officer, a judge, a caseworker. All of these things that are really hampering my life. And I have, at this point, dedicated my life to trying to fight drug addiction. But because of my past, I couldn't go to your town to talk to you about this without a hell of a lot of paperwork. And realistically, if I said I want to do this every other week, they would go, no. You know, we'll approve you for a couple of trips outside of the jurisdiction annually, but we're not going to let you go once a month. If you got a job as a truck driver, you're screwed. Unless, of course, you only drive a route within the approved area that you can live in. So just what it's going to do in terms of not destroying lives of people who get caught with some drugs is epic. It really will change an awful lot in terms of the potential of individuals. Because how many people might have done fantastic things? How many people could have been great politicians or doctors or lawyers? But because they got caught with drugs at one point in their life, there's no hope for that ever. They can't play that game. Sorry, folks. So that brings us to Brazil or the Netherlands. There are so many different countries that have tried decriminalization, and virtually all of them have seen the exact same thing happen. Yet, as a country, we have absolutely no intention whatsoever of tapping out because that's how we view it. We view it as tapping out, in spite of the fact that there are a lot of people who you might consider in the know, right? Organizations and and groups of people who study this kind of stuff. So when you look into decriminalization in the US, is there support for this among the thinkers, air quotes? Or do these groups think that decriminalization will be an error? Look, we'll take a look, right? The W, H, and the O, right? If I throw those initials together, this thing will get buried because they'll assume I'm talking about something else. But you know who I'm talking about. It is a world organization. Yes, the W, the H, and the O. They're quoted, this is in their literature. Countries should work toward developing policies and laws that decriminalize injection and other use of drugs and thereby reduce incarceration. Countries should work toward developing policies and laws that decriminalize the use of clean needles and syringes. Countries should ban compulsory treatment for people who use and or inject drugs. Let me read that last sentence because this is freaking huge. Really, this is not something you would see coming. Countries should ban compulsory treatment for people who use and or inject drugs. The reason that NA isn't worth a fart anymore, the reason that AA does not have the same results that it used to have, is because treatment is compulsory for anyone who has been arrested. So individuals who have no desire whatsoever to get clean are forced into a room with people that really want to get clean. People like us that have said, I don't want to do this anymore. I really want to change my life. If the lifeboat today took 60 people on right now, what do we got? About 30 of us on right now. If all of a sudden we had 90 and 60 of those people want to get high and don't want to have anything to do with sobriety, how long do you think the lifeboat would be around? Because that's what we're doing to AA and NA. We've destroyed two organizations that were really doing beautiful work for a long period of time. The 12-step programs worked until they didn't. Now, when you go to a 12-step program, there's a really good chance that there's a dope dealer sitting next to you. You know, there are guys getting high in the parking lot. I have relapsed in the parking lot of an NA meeting twice. And both times I had a lot of sobriety, months. But I ran into people that didn't want to be there, had bags of dope in their pocket, were giggling about the speech. Boy, did you hear that guy? You want to get high? So the W and the H and the O see that as a real issue. I do too, to be honest with you. I think it's huge that they have looked at it from that standpoint. The American Public Health Association said eliminates federal and state criminal penalties and collateral sanctions for personal drug use and possession offenses, and avoid unduly harsh administrative penalties such as civil asset forfeiture. The number of people in our country who lose a car because there's dope in it, and it can go all the way up the line. You hear stories of guys that had 3 pot plants growing, and they lost a $600,000 homestead because there was some weed growing there. And the government in their wisdom said, well, we'll just take everything you own, right? Because you're a criminal. These are issues that are legit. Whether you like the idea of decriminalization or not, these are really legit concerns. And I'm not sure how you address them any other way. Maybe you think I'm crazy. I'm going to be interested to hear what you guys have to say about this for real. Next in line would be the Organization of American States, who said decriminalization of drug use needs to be considered as a core element in any public health strategy for thinkers. Wow. Well, that pretty much lays it out, doesn't it? These are big organizations within our country, people, or worldwide, as in the W and the H and the O. The Human Rights Watch says drug control policies that impose criminal penalties for personal drug use undermine basic human rights. Subjecting people to criminal sanctions for the personal use of drugs or for possession of drugs for personal use infringes on their autonomy and right to privacy. The criminalization of drug use has undermined the rights of health, and governments should rely instead on non-penal regulatory and public health policies. How do you argue with any of this? Honestly, and I understand those that don't want it, but how do you argue with this? Because I'm going to give you a great example. Without getting into the politics of it, I don't care what side of the equation you come down on, but a woman has a right to terminate a pregnancy because it's her body. You can't tell her what she can do with her body, but you can tell a drug user what they can do with theirs. Right? You can tell them that if they're getting high, they're breaking the law for putting an herb into their body, something that grew naturally. You ingest that, you're breaking the law. And many states have a law called internal possession, which means you can get arrested and tried just for having dope in your system. If that's not infringing on your autonomy or on your personal rights, I don't know what is. And I have been arrested for internal possession in just one of the stupidest ways ever. In the state of Utah, I was pulled over and a cop said, "Do I smell weed in this car?" And I said, "I really doubt it." And the guy said, "You're telling me you don't smoke pot?" And I had a big steal your face Grateful Dead sticker in my back window, which was probably why I was pulled over. But I said, "No, I'm not telling you I don't smoke pot. I'm just telling you you don't smell any of it in this car." And he said, "Well, when was the last time you got stoned?" I said, "It's been a couple of weeks." Boom, arrested, taken in, tested, because they know that if you've done it in the last 30 days, or if you're a regular pot user, a person that uses every single day, you could test positive for 3 to 6 months. Seriously. I know this because when I got arrested, I stopped using. And they said, as long as we're going to keep testing you, and as long as your levels continue to drop, you're not in any trouble. And it was almost 6 months before I tested clean. And I was not using. Internal possession. These are laws on the books. And I guarantee you there are people on the boat that have been arrested and convicted for it. Guaranteed. Plenty of us. Next up, we've got the NAACP, who says the U.S. government should pilot the Portugal decriminalization program in 3 U.S. cities and apply the lessons learned throughout the United States. Pick the 3 largest cities, do what they've done in Portugal, see what happens. And then if it works, take it to the rest of the states. Well, that's damn logical, isn't it? Let's try it. What do we have to lose? Because right now it's not working. What we're doing ain't working. When 400 people a day are dying from overdoses, the plan we have in place sucks. And granted, a lot of it is because we're not keeping the stuff from getting in here. But you know what? If we could keep it from getting in here through the southern border, they're going to find other ways to get it in here. At the same level? Of course not. Of course not. It would never be to the level that we're seeing now. But it doesn't matter. Because as long as people are using, there needs to be a plan in place. And that plan is either lock them up and throw away the key, as many of them as you could possibly incarcerate, and see how that works out. We've been trying that for 5 decades. And the war on drugs has been a joke. The second largest budget we got in this country, and we have had very little victories of any kind. The war on drugs has not been a success. No one will argue with me on that. No one. People that hate drugs will not say, yes, this has been a great success. It just hasn't. And it makes you start wondering if this doesn't make sense. The National Latino Congress said the 2010 Congress urges state and federal governments to follow the successful model of countries like Portugal that have decriminalized personal adult possession and use of all drugs, which has improved the health of drug users, reduced incarceration and death, and saved taxpayers untold monies with no negative consequences to society at all. How do you argue that? Look at what's going on in the countries that have decriminalized. See what's happening. I'm not suggesting we all start getting stoned. I just am suggesting that maybe we need a different plan because the one in place ain't getting it done. All we're doing is locking up a whole lot of people whose only crime is that they wanted to change their head. They wanted to feel different. And for that, there are people doing a decade. 82% of arrests are not for making the stuff or selling the stuff. It's no war on drugs. It's a war on drug users. It's a war on people that get high. The International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies. Injecting drug use is a health issue, not a criminal issue. It is an issue of human rights. It cannot be condoned, but neither should it be criminalized. Well, that's another tough one to argue with, isn't it? Shouldn't be condoned, but it shouldn't be criminalized. This is a disease. Can you imagine if we started arresting people for diabetes? But we're a disease. We suffer from a disease that makes people hate us. And that's not the case with things like diabetes. Sadly, we really are not liked by much of the population. And even those in recovery, those of us who are fighting to get better, there's not a lot of help. But if we weren't blowing $35,000 per person to keep those individuals incarcerated because they got caught with some dope, what could we do with all of that money? How many programs could we put into place to help people get off who wanted to get off? And if we decriminalized, the cartels go out of business, right? These organizations that are making billions upon billions of dollars, right? More money than most Fortune 500 companies, and killing people to keep that business going. If you take away their profit margin, they go away. It certainly makes you wonder, right? Lastly, the Global Commission on Drug Policy. Stop criminalizing people for drug use and possession, and stop imposing compulsory treatment on people whose only offense is drug use or possession. It sounds to me like the people whose job it is to think about this stuff are all in agreement. Right? They're all in agreement. So who isn't? If everybody that I just quoted, if all of these organizations believe that decriminalization of controlled substances is the way to go, why the hell aren't we doing it? You know the answer to that for real? The answer to that is we don't want to believe that we lost the war on drugs. We don't want to believe that we spent all of that money for nothing, that we incarcerated all of those people for nothing. But at some point, you got to cut bait, right? You got to take your losses. I realize this sucks, but there's not a great alternative. The option is continue to do what we're doing to the tune of hundreds of billions of dollars annually. How many lives destroyed? People, I'm here today and I'm sober, but there is so much of my life that will never be the same because of my criminal record. And that's the reality. And there's a lot of people for whom that's a reality. I am by no stretch of the imagination alone on this. There are a lot of people in this country who currently are living a much different life because they have things on their record that are never going to go away. And I realize that this is tough, but I want everybody to think about it. Seriously, spend some time thinking about this. And then I want to hear what you think. Send me emails. You want to come on and tell me why this is a dumb idea? Send me an email, sober@myyahoo.com, and I will bring you on and we can have a discussion about this, a healthy one. By the way, people, I realize that we have not done enough here on the boat for the people who are members. The big reason for that has been my inability to use the software necessary in order to be able to broadcast to you people and to do some other stuff. All of that is in the rear view mirror. As you can tell by the really cool intro music and the outro and the fact that in a second, I'm going to bring a guest on. I'm going to bring a guest on this evening. There's a lot that we can do now. I can start bringing people on, up to about 6 people at any given time. And I would really love to start bringing more people on. If you want to tell your story on the lifeboat, please reach out to me. It's a standing offer, people. If you want to come on here and talk about your drug use, send me an email. If you've got a story to tell, and I don't know anybody on the boat that doesn't have a story to tell, then please reach out to me. But today I want to bring on a guest. There are parts of what we do here that there are people considerably better at this than I am. And the beautiful thing about the ability to bring on others is that people with expertise in areas that I do not have expertise in are going to make the boat better. Having people come on whose knowledge base far outstrips mine gives us an opportunity to learn some things as it pertains to the most important subject in our life, right? Which is getting rid of our drug habits, getting it under control, and living a better life. And a lot of that has to do with up here. So today I am bringing on Heather Joy, and Heather is going to talk to us a little bit about the mind, keeping in mind that this is something that she's educated in, right? My expertise is the fact that I did way too much dope and spent a lot of time reading about why I was the person that I am, trying to figure out a way to stop people from becoming me. Heather, on the other hand, is actually educated. So at this point, I want to bring on Heather Joy. You all know her, right? So let's see if this works the way it's supposed to, huh? What do you think? Look at that.
Oh, there you go. Hey. Now you can hear me, right?
Oh, I don't hear you though.
Oh.
Do we have a button there, Heather? Because I don't have one here. Oh, let's see something here. Let's try.
Okay.
You're not muted on my end.
Yeah, I'm not muted here either.
Oh, that's a crying shame. Let's see here. Bear with us, peep. Let's see if I go like this. If I mute and then unmute, in theory,
okay, can you hear me now?
We should be able to hear Heather, but we do not.
You can't hear me?
Heather, I may have to bring you back on after we figure this out, because this is super, super unfortunate. Because I very much would like to. Let's see here. Yeah, that is just not going to work. Heather, we will get to you, I promise. People, I will be bringing Heather on to talk to us about mental health and addiction, so that we can, because this is really good stuff, and it's stuff that she is really educated on. Sadly, we cannot hear her, which, let's see this one more time. Nothing.
Okay, nope. Can you hear me now?
You can hear me. That's great. Unfortunately, we cannot hear you. All right, Heather, I promise we'll get this fixed. I'm sorry, hon. All right, peeps. That close. All right, people. So what I would like to do now is I would like to hear from all parties in terms of the subject matter. This is obviously this is something that is going to get a lot of people angry. Sadly, that is the truth. This is going to be one of those situations that causes people to take sides. The decriminalization of drugs, this is a reality in this country. The question is going to become, Spanx Calhoun says, I had a dream, I drank a beer and it sucked. That is a chemical dream, Calhoun. And this is something that everybody who gets sober goes through. And the fact that you're having chemical dreams is a good thing, not a bad thing, truthfully, because you don't get chemical dreams until you're decently into your rehabilitation. And everybody has done that. We heard her, Captain, but we could not hear you both. Well, then hold on. If you could hear her, let's do this again. Heather, you talk. They can hear you.
Okay. Can they hear me? Okay. All right. Hey, I didn't get to spend a whole lot of time talking about mental health the other day. I spent most of the time on physical health, and I want to come back to it. You know, just the way that everything is, you know, the political climate, society, things are falling apart right now. I mean, you know, the banks are collapsing. um, People are losing it. I mean, I cannot believe the stuff I'm seeing. You know, especially in airports and on airplanes. People are losing it. I don't understand it, but it really concerns me. Um, I want, you know, okay, you know, a lot of us, because we are addicts, we have become addicts because we're trying to medicate ourselves. There's some kind of pain that we are trying to mask. We're trying, you know, trying to damp that down. And usually it's because of trauma. It's something that has happened to you. And I want you to remember that, you know, when even as a baby in the womb, if the mother is suffering with a significant amount of stress, if there's something going on, it's going to affect the baby. It's going to affect the brain. It's going to affect the development. It's going to change the structure. It's going to change the chemicals in your brain. And for a lot of us addicts, that's what has happened. And, you know, getting sober is only part of it. If you don't take care of the underlying issues, you're not going to, you know, you're going to end up using again. And that's the way it is, you know. Um, and just, you know, I see everything falling apart around us right now. And this is definitely the time to take care of yourself, you know, especially your mental health. You know, like I said, I'm seeing people just losing it. And it's really got me concerned, especially for a lot of people who are just newly sober. You know, that's a shaky time. And I really want to encourage everybody, you know, to find out, you know, if you don't know what it is from your past that is, you know, that caused you to want to use, and, you know, and if you don't know, you need to find out. I mean, and that really concerns me. And a lot of people don't don't think that there is a problem. And you know, my husband, uh, his his sisters have all been going through therapy, and couple months back they were talking to him and they were saying, don't you remember that this happened and this happened and this happened? He has no memory, and he was there. This stuff happened to him as well, and he can't even remember it. You know, if you don't think there's a problem, but you've been an addict or you are an addict, I guarantee you there's something there. It might be repressed. You might not be able to remember it. But I am pleading with everybody, you know, please take care of those core issues. Um, you know, that there's whenever something traumatic happens, whether you are a child or an adult, it changes your brain. It can damage it. It can change it structurally. It can change the chemicals in your brain. It can, you know, it can be it's a real problem. And I I want you to remember something. Your brain is just another organ in your body. I mean, it's a pretty amazing organ. You know, it controls everything else, but it is still an organ. And just like a pancreas can quit functioning and quit producing insulin, your brain can break. Just like any other organs, things can go wrong. You can experience structural damage. You know, it can be chemical. It can, you know, it can be many things, but it can break just the way any other organ in your body can. And you know, I'm just, even though, you know, it's 2023, there's still a horrible stigma surrounding anything with mental health and mental illness. And that it really bothers me because a lot of people are suffering because they don't want people to know. And you know, I guarantee you, there a lot of people suffer from mental illness and just don't talk about it. That really concerns me. Um, and I also, another reason that I am pleading with you to please, take care of those core issues is because, if you fall into depression and you don't take care of it, most likely you're going to deteriorate, and it's going to get worse and worse until you start having suicidal ideations and you start thinking about, I would be better off not here. I can't take this pain anymore. Sometimes your brain tries to convince you that you're a burden to other people, or, there's a lot of things that can happen. But, I want you to remember your brain can break just like any other organ in your body. You can experience disease, and there's no shame in seeing a psychiatrist or going to even your general practitioner and saying, look, I'm struggling. you know um I was trying to think last night about all of the questions, when I was working as a psych nurse, and when I was admitting patients. There were a lot of questions I had to go through with these patients when they were admitted, and I just wanted to go through a couple of them, just to help you understand, if you're starting to see some of these signs in yourself. I mean, it's a good thing to pay attention and to look into it before you get really bad. Some of the things that I would have to ask them, would be, how long have you had, you're having anxiety and depression, how long have you been dealing with it? Are you experiencing suicidal ideations? Do you have a plan? Um, are you having panic attacks? Do you have somatic signs in your body? A lot of times your body will have aches and pains just out of the blue. Um, and it's your body's way of trying to scream at you and say, hey, there's something really wrong up here. That's a big one. um, you know is your mental health making it difficult for you to concentrate? Are you able to work? Are you able to take care of yourself? Are you able to cook? Are you able to clean? Are you dressing yourself every day? Are you bathing? I mean, things can really deteriorate. And if, when you're not taking care of those things, those are definite warning signs. Are you having problems with your coworkers or with your family members? Uh, let's see. Your appetite is always a good indication too. Are you eating way too much, or do you have no appetite at all and you're not eating? That's a big one. Um, are you experiencing a lot of guilt? Are you feeling unworthy? Are you struggling to remember simple things? Um, let's see, do you feel safe? Um, there's a huge battery of questions I had to go through, but I mean, these are just some of them. If you're struggling, to get along with people, you're struggling to take care of things, everyday things, simple things. You really need to pay attention to that, because when you get to the point where you are in a very deep depression, when you're at that point, you cannot see that anything is ever going to get better. I mean, you feel like that, you think like that. You cannot see yourself ever feeling better again or ever feeling happy again. And you start to dwell on things like, I would be, my family would be better off without me. I don't want to do this anymore. I can't take this anymore. That's a dangerous thing. And if you're reaching that point where you're starting to think about that, please, please talk to somebody, get some help. And I know it's a lot easier to say that than to do it. If you don't have insurance, if your budget is very limited, that's difficult. But I know here where I live, and I've mentioned this before, there are a lot of places that have sliding scales, where you can go in and pay $5 a visit. You can see a psychiatrist, and you can see a therapist or a counselor, and you can start to work through these things. But if you're not taking care of that, you're going to, end up in a very dark depression, and you're going to either fall back into your addiction, to try and medicate that, or you're going to take yourself out. And you guys, this life is a gift. And this life, as addicts, we put ourselves through hell, and we put everyone around us through hell. But I swear, I mean, I was there, and I've been very depressed many, many times before, but I've been able to get out of it. And, it does repeat itself with me. That's just something I have to deal with, but I'm getting better at it. And every time I do have a bout of depression, it lasts a lot. The duration is a lot shorter because I'm learning, better how to deal with it. But I also know the warning signs. When I'm starting to struggle with simple things, I know it's time to, see my doctor, switch my medications around. But, and again, taking a medication for depression or for any kind of mental illness, there is no shame in that. It's just like, if your pancreas isn't working, you've got to put insulin in your body to be able to get by. And it's the same thing with psych meds. If you need them, there is absolutely no shame in taking them. And that's, please think about it that way, because if you are depressed, if you're struggling, please, please don't let that stigma stop you from getting the help, because I promise you, this life is full of joy and happiness and good things, and once you are able to get stronger, and you're able to, get control of your addiction, and you're able to feel better, and not, be experiencing depression and anxiety all the time, life is really good, so I'm just pleading with people, please, please take care of yourself. If you are struggling, just like with addiction, if you're struggling with your mental health, please talk to somebody, please. And I'm always there. Tommy's there. There are hotlines you can call if you're struggling. But if you are seriously considering suicide, and you have a plan, and you know how you want to do it, you need to get to the ER. You've got to tell somebody. It when people commit suicide, it destroys everybody that loves that person. And I've seen it for myself many times. I've taken care of a lot of people in psych units who, lost someone to suicide, and it is horrible. And it doesn't, it just passes the pain that you were feeling, it passes it on to everybody else. So I'm just, I just feel so strongly about this, and the way that society is right now, the political climate, everything that's going on. This is not an easy time, and everybody is going to struggle. So it is more important now than ever to take good care of your mental health. You've got to be strong so you can take care of yourself and the people that you love. And please, if you are thinking, if you're having suicidal ideations, please talk to somebody. Don't do that to the people that love you. And when you are, when you get the help you need, and you get the medications that you need, and you start to feel better, you're going to go, oh wow, you know, that was a close one. But it just destroys people when you lose someone to suicide. So I'm just begging everybody on the boat, please take care of yourselves. Get the help that you need if you need it. And I've been on both sides. I've been a psych nurse, and I've been a patient many times. It's not an easy thing, but I guarantee you can come out of it, and you can be strong, and you can help other people, and that just makes you feel even better. And I appreciate Tommy giving me a few minutes, but I just feel so strongly about this, the way that everything is in the world right now and the things that I'm seeing. Again, just please, take care of yourselves. That's all I have for today. But thanks, Tommy.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that, Heather. I really do. I really appreciate you. I appreciate you. You know what, people? It's this is one of those situations that they get a lot of times these things can get blurred. And what I mean by that is that once you start, uh, the lines between mental health and drug addiction, when you're starting to get sober, there is an awful lot of normal anxiety, and there's an awful lot of normal depression, and there's a lot of stuff that is just goes hand in hand with getting sober. However, when those things become overwhelming, and when those things start to take on a life other than larger than their own, then Heather's 100% right. And you know something, the boat has felt this. If you've been on the boat for any length of time, you've been here when someone as opposed to reaching out, and as opposed to getting the kind of help they need, they took a permanent solution to a problem that is part time. If you find yourself in that situation, don't hesitate. Don't suffer in silence. I mean, Heather's 100% right, and it's easy to just chalk it up to, well, you know what? It's part of getting sober. It's not. It's not. If you have any thought whatsoever of hurting yourself, that is not a normal thought having
No,
anything to do with sobriety. It isn't. You know, we struggle with sobriety, and we struggle with all of the things that go along with it. But fantasizing or thinking about or planning out or any of those things, they're not normal. And
no,
the she's 100% right that if you heard anything, that the biggest takeaway has got to be that there is not a damn thing wrong with saying I need help. It is the most courageous thing that you can do as a human being. It is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength. So if you're
yep,
finding yourself in that position, please, for the love of God, reach out to one of us. We can help you get to the places that you need to be so that you can get the kind of help. You know, I worked with somebody here last year that was really close. We were we thought that there was a chance we were going to lose this person, and amazingly, it was one prescription. This person went and sought professional help and got a prescription for something that literally, like throwing a light switch. It was the end of any of those thoughts. And, now this person's got 11 or 12 months of sobriety and is just living his best life. And that is a possibility. Do not think that this kind of depression and this kind of thought has anything to do with getting sober, because it doesn't. The normal wear and tear of getting sober is difficult. And as she talked about working through things in your past, people, get one of these damn things and start writing in it every single day. And you will be shocked what journaling does to help point out things in your life, in areas in your life that aren't right, when things are, look at that. It's a cat almost in a basket. The, to have a written log of what's going on inside the dome will do real wonders for you. And the ability to go back and read those will let you know where you're at. So I want to thank Heather. We're blessed to have her on the boat. We really are. There's just so much that she can bring to to the lifeboat that I can't. And we are blessed. Heather, thank you so much. People, we ran a little bit over, but you know what? It was worth it. I want to hear what you people have to say on the decriminalization. I really do. Take the time to reach out. And you want to debate this, you want to talk about this, you want to tell us your story, please send me an email to sober@myyahoo.com, and we would love to get you on here. Spanx Calhoun sent me a text message and said, Dad, I can fix that. He didn't call me an idiot or anything, but he told me that what I'm going through with the whole not being able to hear thing is something that he can fix. I was listening to it on a 30-second delay, which was, but fortunately I was able to hear everything that Heather had to say. So God bless, Heather. Really appreciate you. Everybody, we will be back tomorrow, 5 a.m. Get up and see us. If you haven't caught one of the early shows, come and do it. I think you'll be surprised at how much it can change your day when you're surrounded by people that care about you that early in the morning. And besides, even Miss V is doing it. We all know how V feels about getting up in the morning. So, all right, people, we will see you tomorrow at 5 a.m. Between now and then, take care of yourself. All right, please. I'm Captain Tommy Scoville, and on the other side of the glass is Heather. And that, oh, big yawn. That's a cat in a basket. Good night, everybody. We love you.
Did you see the key?
Let's see. Can we get this? Can we get it? Can we get it? Look at this.